Hey, everybody. We are at episode 5 out of 5. Um, that's the rating of what this podcast series is with Colin. 5 out of 5. Yep.
I would say
It's
six out of
epic.
five for you. It's epic. Just being here with you.
I don't know about that, man. You're giving
Okay.
you're setting a different bar, but I love it. Colin, you're a great dude, man. Um, he totally got me off my game right there with that. Like it doesn't happen
No,
very often. I might actually be blushing.
I'm gonna just
You got
start
me on
throwing
camera.
compliments your way all day long. You got it.
Unbelievable. So usually I'm the guy that catches everyone off guard, and he's been doing it to me through this series, which takes a special talent.
But you've
But
been throwing these unscripted questions in at the beginning of every episode, so I don't know. I think it's tied, but it's your podcast too. So I'm just here. I'm just honored to be here.
yeah, well, you know what? They're not bad unscripted. So, ladies and
No.
gentlemen, here's what we do: I
Yeah.
pick 5 questions, and I work them out with the guest, and so they have an idea what's coming at them. But in order to get a conversation going, we ask conversational questions and have a conversation. And like the really hard questions or the more pointed questions, they know what's coming,
Hmm.
because I think that's fair.
Hmm.
And so that's the only thing that is scripted on this is they have an idea of one of the questions coming at them. And
My anxiety's building. What do you got for me?
why is your anxiety going?
No, I'm excited. The first one got me, I think, or the second. I can't remember. It's great. Yeah.
I didn't mean to. That should not have
No, it was
happened.
awesome. I loved it. Let's
Um,
go. What do you got?
what? So I got a wall of I'm just making this up. I got a wall of challenge
Okay.
coins behind me.
Okay. Yes.
Like I got like I don't know. I made like collected things over my career and like post career
Those
that
are
and
awesome.
stuff. I like where do you put the trinkets?
Yeah. It's
Do
beautiful.
you have the trinkets?
I can see them, but I'd probably
No, you don't need to show
break
them.
everything. Yeah. Yeah, I do. I do have some trinkets. And I've got, you know, it's kind of funny because, you save so many of them too, but then if somebody, came over and they're like, which one's your favorite? I'd be like, oh crap, I'm not really entirely sure. Cause I don't know, they're at such a special time in the life, right? And there's not very many being added lately because of that. Cause it was, a lot of it was during that time. I do have to say, probably one of my favorite was from Marine Corps Combatant Dive School, and it may or may not be shaped like a bottle opener, so it's very unique. They probably wouldn't do that anymore. New times.
Um, it it's probably never been used.
I probably has. I don't know. I was definitely. I think I was 20, so I did not drink at the time. But nowadays, if it's laying around and I lose my real one in the house, I'm gonna use it. So yeah,
Mm. I got married
you got the
and
ring. Yes.
I honestly
Yeah.
like it's a fantastic
Yeah.
bottle opener. Like people like, hey, can you open this for me? And I'm like, yeah. And so
I'm the guy that's like bouncing it off the table, like really just doing damage to the table, not opening it. So that's a skill.
every time Lindsay's with me when I do it, she's just
Yeah.
like, she's like, really, you're that guy. I'm like,
It's an
sorry.
acquired taste, but it's a skill.
Um, we all have our favorite trinkets for different
Mm,
reasons, and you know, um, the only reason I have that as a backdrop here, to be honest with me, is not to like create some sort of symbolism or anything.
mm,
This is like the only space in my whole house that I get.
mm.
Like I have like a
Oh,
4 foot by 4 foot section,
yeah, yeah,
and that just happens to be the only spot that I get to hang it in the whole house. And so it creates lots of conversations on different calls
yeah.
throughout the day for work. And I was looking at it, but I got a special one on there that I really enjoy, and it's relatively recently that I got it. It's the Miramar one. I don't know if you can see it right
Oh, the air
there.
station.
Yeah, I went
Nice. Is
there.
it a square
Um,
or rectangle?
yeah, it's like a
That's
rectangle
awesome.
license
Oh,
plate
it
one
looks like a
right here.
license plate. That is cool.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
um, and it's why it's kind of cool for me is I always wanted to be Top Gun.
Mm, who did?
Right? Like, it came out in,
Yeah.
like, the '80s and, like,
Hmm.
highway to.
And they
And
didn't ruin it with the second one, thankfully.
no, it was
It's
awesome.
so awesome.
And so
Yeah.
that's why this is kind of cool, is
Yeah.
because I was out in California, in San Diego, when that movie launched, like when it actually hit the theaters,
Wow.
on a work trip. And I before I flew out, I went to Miramar. I went and
Mm.
um, hopped on the base, and I had like the worst Subway sandwich. Like, the base Subway sandwiches, they're horrible.
Yeah, but I still go to them, or I did. Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's
well, I
better
I
than the
went on base,
chow.
and I got that, and I watched the Super Hornets take off, and I'm a
Oh, that's
super
cool.
plane nut, and like it brought me back to like watching the 16s and working on the 16s when I did. And
Oh,
so the
yeah.
moral of this whole story is I'm driving on the base, or like I'm driving to the base, and I got the rental car, and so this isn't that long ago, and I have the windows rolled down in this rental car. It's just a horrible like entry level like little nothing car,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I have this stereo cranked as loud as I can and the Highway to the Danger Zone song on repeat, and I'm like screaming, living my best life. And I went and I got that at the BX or the PX or whatever they call it on the Marine base.
Oh, PX. We're PX. Yeah.
PX,
Are
yeah,
you guys the BX? Yeah.
yeah.
Was it postal exchange or post exchange? I don't know. Base
Nah, that's
exchange.
weird.
Yeah.
It's in base exchange
Yeah.
for Air Force.
Yeah.
And anyway, I was living my best life. I had the worst Subway sandwich because that's
Naturally.
what's on the military
Yeah.
bases. And I was eating crusty Cheetos and having this thing and just living my best life and watching the Super Hornets go. So it was rad.
I think
Anyway,
it's totally underrated to not jam out and sing along in a car. That's a mood booster for me, positively.
yeah. And so anyway, like I was just thinking of questions, to break the
Yeah.
ice on this one.
Mm,
And the Miramar one is pretty special because I always wanted
yeah.
to go to Miramar.
Mm,
And as I'm out there, I see all the like Navy SEAL training stuff going on
yeah.
right off the highway. They're doing the rappels from the helicopter, always cool stuff that I wanted to try, but I never
Yeah.
got the Air Force guys don't do that.
Well,
Um,
there's a that with the CCTs and the PJs, but
well,
yeah,
let's say this: 99% of the Air
yeah,
Force guys
yeah.
don't do that.
That's like
Um,
99% of the military, actually. So
yeah,
the commercials totally can be deceiving. Be
yeah,
selective with your career, but also do what is most interesting. So
yeah. And so what one of some of the things that I hope happens out of these podcasts are people understand that you can go to the military, get an
mm,
education because you went to the military,
yeah,
get real world skills that apply to post military, and get a career.
mm,
And as you transition into the civilian leadership, into the world, from all the stuff that you learned and the things that you were able to acquire from your time in the military, like that's an okay path. Not everyone has to go do the Ivy League. Like I'm going to go to Harvard, right? Like I didn't even know I wanted to go to college.
I
I was the
didn't
first
want
person.
to initially.
I was the first person ever in my family to go to college and graduate. Like
That's
no
impressive.
one went to college.
Yeah,
Um, and I share that story is because like, everyone talks about the college debt and all of those
mm,
things, and there's a lot of patriotism that comes from serving your country and um and doing that, and camaraderie and
mm,
skills that you learn that are real. And so as you transitioned out of your out of your military service, we talked about
mm.
this a little bit earlier, and you went into the civilian life. There's a really big like identity thing. We talked about
Yeah,
that brand
yeah,
fabric, of what you do and how you do it. But then there's also um it's a different work ethic,
yeah.
and it's a different culture, right?
Very different.
And and what it, how people act and what they
Mm.
say they're going to do and how they do it, they're not what we're used to.
Yeah,
And
different world.
a different world.
Yeah.
And but it doesn't mean it's a bad world. It's just
Mm.
you have to recalibrate.
Yeah.
And so, can you share a little bit about how that hard go mentality of being in the military and then transitioning that hard go into civilian was for you?
Yeah, I know we talked about it a little bit, but I think I was very fortunate that I did I kept doing things. I think, probably, reflecting back, one of the best things I ever did was I either was a small job, or I was going to school, or I was doing things in the reserves. But I don't think it's intentional to like stay busy, but I think it's important to keep doing things. I think when I initially joined the military, I had this idea that I would get out and I could be lazy the rest of my life. And then quickly the the very proficient brainwashing that, I joke, but it, very positive impact on my life. I was like, I can never just do nothing. And so I think that was really positive. I think at the same time, I never really kind of, spent the time until, the past few years to really figure out, okay, like, who am I? Like, I know I am a veteran. Like, I know I am a Marine. They say once Marine, always Marine, but I'm not in the Marines anymore. And so, like, I think, reflecting back, I think if I could teach a transition class, to the military, I don't think it would be how to write crappy resumes. It would be more so spent on, like, you know, you're leaving your community, you're leaving this very clear purpose, like starting to reflect on, what is your purpose going to be after the military, like,
Hmm.
what is your community like? What are you going back to? I think there's probably people that get out and they go back to, some bad groups of friends because that's their friend group where they're from. And I think, what they say, you're the average of your five closest friends. But, I think having a positive community is really important, but you're leaving all these things behind. And so I think for me, I've learned a lot the hard way, but I also wouldn't have it any other way because it brought me where I am today on Zach's podcast, Leaders Lead. But for real though, like, I'm so grateful for those really terrible, experiences that happened, like my transition. Like, okay, what actually is my purpose? Like, actually, who am I? What, like, not Colin that does this job, or Colin that was in the Marines, but, and then what am I going to do? I think one of my big, goals in life now is how can I help one more person? Because I was so fortunate to have so many people that helped me through those hard times. And whether that's through volunteering, whether that's through, making impact, I think that's such a critical part at the transition is, what can I do outside of my day job? Whether it's be a father, be a good father and have a family, or whether it's being, volunteering in your community. I think just working, maybe for a lot of veterans, isn't going to check that box and fill up that bucket of the purpose and the community you had
Yep.
before. So I know I talked a lot there, but I think it's figuring out, what I wanted to be, who I actually was, and then how can I, have that impact, that positive impact after service, like that service after service. Because I think
Yeah.
that's why so many of us joined. It's a service. We're in the service. We're service members.
Yep.
And so you can leave that, but there's other ways to serve afterwards. And there's so many other communities or
I
nonprofits
agree.
that need that service, and the doors are open. You just got to go find them.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah,
And people say nonprofit, and they're like, like, no, man, there's some cool
yeah,
nonprofits,
mhm,
and or there's just cool ways to like dedicate your time to
yeah,
something. But talk to me a little bit about like just the tempo, right?
yeah. Oh yeah,
Like, yeah, like the tempo is ridiculously different because, right, when you're in the military, you can like totally like go high tempo,
yeah,
nonstop, hit this ridiculously hard tempo. And when you do that outside, it's not the same payback.
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Can you
yeah. That's a really good question. I think we, I think something that I learned, and again, I'm glad I learned it the hard way, was, I, I was like, I worked really hard in the military, right, and had this really high op tempo, and then I got out and I was like, I'll just outwork everybody. That'll be how that worked previously. I'll apply it again, and it's a different battle space, right? It's a different arena, and so I think I've said the quote before, but like what got you here may not be the thing that gets you to that next step. And so, I think, you know, going from that high op tempo, going from that, that high, just a bunch of incredible individuals that are operating at one of the highest levels in the military to now a completely new arena. I think that's where adaptability is so important, but also just like readdressing, okay, like what are the skills and, what is the appropriate tools to bring to this fight, I almost might say. And it wasn't to try and outwork everybody, right? It was, okay, how can I be more strategic? How can I, show up better? And that might be, like we've talked about, taking care of myself and
Mm.
educating myself and growing, because you're not going to go fight somebody for a job now. You're going to have to go interview and be able to verbalize and prove your skills. So I think there's so much, you got to adapt to that new environment. I think that's so hard. It's easier said than done, right? And also, no one's gonna, you don't wear the same uniform every day, so you have to learn how to dress yourself. Thank God I had my brother, and his advice was like, just have a bunch of cool socks. And that has been, the game changer for me, because now, I'm known to some people with I got the cool socks, and it's like, thank goodness, thank for my brother who was already in the corporate world. That was a good piece of feedback, because you don't wear the same thing every day, and you don't realize how awesome and easy that is until you get out and you're like, does this match with this? Like, I have no idea. Um,
As long as they're
but
cool.
yeah, like, yeah, they got to clash really hard too. Just crazy
Yeah.
colors, lots of designs.
When yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Did you ever get to the point where you burnt out?
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. So, I think, maybe we talked about in the first podcast or the second one, but I definitely, because I got off of active duty, went straight in the reserves. I just never completely completed the transition, and my last deployment was 2019 to 2020. Kind of rolled into COVID too, and I just had a lot of time, with myself, and all those bad habits, all that time, it really just started wearing. I mean, all those little band-aids I'd put on, my mental side or my physical side, or all those bad habits, it finally all came to a head. And I'm so thankful it did too, because I had to learn, like, this is what rock bottom feels like. And I'm so thankful too that I had, just amazing friends, but also, an amazing, therapist. And I also had, I was able to find new tools to really come back from that. But yeah, I didn't really know what burnout was. I probably thought it was, if you asked me when I was in the Marines, it's like, oh, that's weakness. No, but now I know clearly what it is, and I think it was so good because it gave me compassion too, right? I'm so glad I, battled with anxiety, battled with depression, battled with panic attacks, because I wouldn't have that compassion. It wasn't until I experienced it, then I was like, oh, okay, mental health is a real thing. But then I'm also thankful I've gotten to work through a lot of it. It doesn't mean it's perfect, but now I've like, oh, these are healthy tools and habits that can make life even better. Like, I don't think I've ever been happier in a lot of ways, but I've also never been as aware, and I've never also seen at the same time, like, I got a lot more growth to do too. But I'm excited for it too.
Yeah. Um, Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
I think that going through that
yeah,
and learning through that it's hard, but it's real.
yeah,
And um the really good thing that you pointed out here is in the military you can physically grunt through it, right?
yeah. That's kind
Like
of half
I
the
don't
thing sometimes. Yeah,
I don't mean it
yeah,
derogatorily.
yeah.
It's like
It's a
you
derogatory
can
towards grunts, the infantry.
no, like I don't mean it
Yeah,
that way, but
yeah,
you can brute force through it,
yeah. Of course.
right? Like you can find the physical fortitude to get through it. And
Yeah,
when you transition into the corporate world into business, it's different. It's mental jujitsu
yeah,
all day long,
yeah.
right? And it's this ecosystem of it's almost like social engineering. Like I don't know how else
It's
to describe it.
it's a chess game, right?
Yeah.
There's internal politics. There's a million different personalities, a million different backgrounds, and not everybody's playing by the same rules. Because in the military, there's very clear rules, very clear left and right lateral limits, we would say. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and it can be
And
intimidating,
yeah,
definitely.
like
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually find it it can be really intimidating
Yeah.
because of the unseen and the unknown um,
Yeah, it's scary.
connections, right? Well, yeah, it's like, man, like, did I cross that line? I don't know. Like in the
There's no
military, you know where the
manual.
lines are.
There's
Like
no
they're painted on the
manual. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the line is
Yeah.
literally painted on the concrete. Like if
Yeah.
you cross this red line, someone is
Yeah.
going to come with a
Yeah.
gun and like tell you to get on the ground.
Yeah.
Like that's what
If you
happened at the
step on
flight
the
line.
grass, you're gonna get in trouble in the Marine Corps. So
Right. Like
yeah.
there's clear lines of demarcation. And in the corporate world, like things are blurry.
Yeah.
But when you transition into the corporate world, I think it's really healthy to be able to
Yeah.
understand the differences and being able to lead through it.
Mm.
And um, when you talk about the things that you've been talking about here, what one of the things I'm really proud about that you've talked about here on this series is the sleep and the mental part. And here's why, Colin. Because as you get into leadership roles, you have to have your mental faculties present. You have
Yeah.
to be able to think clearly, and you can't do that if you're not getting proper sleep. You can't do that if you're not taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
And you talked a lot about Mike
Yeah.
Sorelli. I'm gonna reference it again right here. And
Yeah.
so in this book, um, he talks about um, 11 um, 11 steps or 11 I'm going to pull it up real quick. It's 11 specific things of the warrior philosophy.
And it's no
And
hack, practical approach to life.
yeah, it's not like a self-help. It's just like
Yeah.
11 characteristics. And it's take ownership of your crap. But
Mm.
one of them is, really taking care of yourself. So if you want to take care of others, you got to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to point out in this. And
Yeah.
you talk about how you and Mike are connected, you're doing these things.
Yeah.
And um you know I pride myself on trying to um not live by, but like demonstrate a lot of
Yeah.
these things. And that's why it resonated so much with me. And quite frankly, that's how you and I got connected, was through
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah.
And um but the one thing that I haven't done really good on is taking that one step at a time,
Yeah.
just in all authenticity. But it starts with sleep.
Mm.
And if you're not getting good sleep and you're not taking great care of yourself, it adds up. And I can tell you that 2022 was hard.
Yeah.
I wasn't sleeping good. I wasn't doing the things, um, and it added up. And so I really, really resonate with the brand one step at a time.
Yeah.
But tonight's not about me. It's about what we can do to lift you up,
Yeah.
how we can support
No.
you. I'm a super fan of Colin. You're a great guy.
No.
Um,
Thank you.
I'm proud to have you in my network. Mike challenged me, um, and he said to
He's
me,
good
he
at
said,
challenges,
"Yeah, I
healthy
really like it.
challenges. Yeah.
Healthy challenges." And he said, "Tell me who you are, not by what you say, but by who your closest friends are."
Mm.
Right? And I'm like, man. I'm like, let me like go look. Here they are. And because what that means is it's the demonstration of your character. And like it's no different than the transition of leadership. And you talked about it here, right? You talked about the people that are transitioning back out.
Mm.
They fall into the old habits. They mix with those old dudes, those old gals,
Yeah.
and they get back into maybe the bad group
Yeah.
because that's what they know. And so how do you rise above that? And I really love that challenge where he's like, hey man, um, it was really more about, it wasn't challenge me so much, but it's like, remember, um, your associations, um, are who you are.
Yeah.
And I loved it. But I can't say enough about what Mike's doing, his purpose, his cause.
Yeah.
Um, I'd love to get into the legacy expeditions, but I mean, man, we've been going at this for a while, and I told you an
Yeah.
hour, and it's. I owe you some time.
We'll eventually
Talk.
get the sleep we were talking about, practicing the
Yeah,
habit. Yeah.
we're gonna practice the habit here in a
Yeah.
few minutes. Colin, what can I do to lift you up, man? And what can this group of people that are gonna watch this or share this or that we're gonna share it with, because that's your job too, and this is to send
Yeah.
this out so people can hear your message. What can they do to lift you up?
Well, this
Different
this is
message than last time.
yeah, this is a leaders lead podcast, and I think I've been reflecting so much, and I'm going to be moving into a new role in my day job. I'm really excited about it, but it's a first time being a people leader in the corporate side, versus the military. And I often think about so much, and you were talking a little bit about it, like people are always like, how do you lead? But I think I flip it sometimes. It's like, well, why would people want to follow me? And I think, one aspect of that, right, besides being knowledgeable of the job, being proficient in your job is, what am I doing that also then espouses good habits and traits that I can set an example for. It's one part of it, but I think that's where for me a lot of it goes to that mental, spiritual, physical, and as you were just talking about too, your community. I think having strong mentors in at work, but also strong community outside of work is so critical. But also, if I'm sending emails at midnight to my team, am I setting the right example? Is that what I
Mm,
would want for them too? And I think again it goes back to, yeah, how do you be a good leader? There's a lot of stuff on that, but also like, why would people want to follow me? And I that can be a tough question. It definitely is, for me too. But it's like, you're just talking about 2022 being a tough year for you. Same for me. It was like the worst year of my life, but also I'm very super thankful it happened. But there's no telling where you could be in a year. Like you've got a podcast now. I'm on your podcast now. That's so awesome. So, even if it's overwhelming to think about, okay, what do I need to change to also become somebody that people want to follow? Who knows where you could be in a year? So I think do something for yourself. We say one step at a time. And I think, it can be a lot of different things, steps, maybe it's, let me go finally, enroll in school to get that degree I always wanted. Maybe it's, I'll get that gym membership, or there's just a path I want to walk on, or there's this book I want to read. There's so many ways to get started, and it's not going to happen overnight, unless I go viral on TikTok, which I don't have one, so it's unlikely right now. But that's what people can do for me, because I'd love to see where they're at in a year. I'd love for people to be way more awesome than me, because then the world's just a little bit of a better place. So that's, I think, what lifts me up is seeing other people, heal themselves and just living their best life. No pun intended.
yeah. Uh, Yeah, I completely agree with you. And
Mm,
that infectiousness of creating a better community, it starts with
yeah,
us,
yeah,
right? Like it's the amount of impact that we can have on the direct connect that we
yeah,
have, and then the infectiousness that that spreads into
yeah,
the next sphere, right? And like so, um, it starts here. It starts now. It starts with us,
mm,
and it starts with you. It starts with what this represents. It starts with the vision
yeah,
of it. And it starts by the people that are listening in. Help share the
yeah,
word. Go be a part of it. Uh, join the club, proverbially, right?
yeah.
Or
Like,
actually,
like,
like there
share, subscribe.
he actually
Yeah,
has a club. You can sign up for it.
yeah.
Um,
Our everyday warrior community.
yep. So, Colin, man, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an
Thank
honor.
you.
Thank you for your service. Thanks what you continue to do
Thank
to
you.
provide solutions for people in this world, uplifting messages, the positivity that you're bringing. I love it. We wish you all the success on all fronts,
Mm.
and we're gonna keep cheering you on from the sidelines, man. Let us know how you're doing, and hey, man, take it one step at a time.
And I'm going to
Uh,
be cheering you on as well. So thank
I
you for
appreciate
having me
that.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. This is episode 5 out of 5 with Colin Creech. It's been an absolute honor and privilege to have him. Have a great night. Take care.